Hi, everybody. It's Friday all over again. Welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me in chat today is Bronk, and maybe others will join as the show gets underway. Uh, it's an interesting program today because uh, I want to talk about something that might be kind of figurative in a way. Uh, when there are so many things being yelled out and so many things that are being said, how do you know what to believe? And there is an answer to the question, but I wanted to illustrate this because today in the news was a convergence of multiple stories that I think were easily, for me, grouped together. And we start with a story that I've been kind of sitting on for a couple of days. A 25-year-old woman claims to be Dallas Cowboy owner's Jerry Jones's daughter, and the thing with him is the claim that she's making is that she is his daughter, although he won't acknowledge it. That he met this girl's mother back in the 90s, impregnated her, and made a deal that would take care of her needs to the tune of initially $375,000 plus some life expenses that would come out to about $1.3 million. Now, and what she and her attorney are saying is that she doesn't want money. She just wants Jerry Jones to acknowledge that she is his daughter. It's kind of a heartbreaking story that she has lived her whole life, and she's a congressional aide right now, so she's not some bum sitting somewhere. And, she's like, all I want you to do, it's no money. There's no money here. All that it is an acknowledgement, because I've gone through my whole life knowing this, but the agreement that her mother signed precluded her from talking about it, or else she wouldn't receive, and her mother wouldn't receive the money.
Wow.
So you hear that story and your heart goes out to that person, because it's like, wow, talking about a life that nobody would choose, So I sat on the story because, all this talk about, owners in the NFL and why I think they're insulated from so many things. And some people will complain that I don't like the owners of the NFL because of CTE, as I've expressed before, their lack of humanity. And this seemed like an ideal lack of humanity story. So the interesting part of the story is what came out today.
What came out today? Because I don't know a lot about this.
All right. Jerry Jones has paid nearly $3 million to the woman who says she is his biological daughter, including her full tuition at SMU and a $70,000 Range Rover on her 16th birthday, and to her mother, according to the Little Rock, Arkansas lawyer who delivered the payments on behalf of the Dallas Cowboys owner. Lawyer Don Jack told ESPN on Thursday that he made regular payments on Jones' behalf to Alexandra Davis, the 25-year-old congressional aide who filed a paternity suit against Jones on March the 3rd, and her mother, Cynthia Spencer Davis, whom Jones met in 1995 when she was a ticket counter agent for American Airlines in Arkansas. On numerous occasions, the attorney said, I've made payments on behalf of Mr. Jones to Cindy and Alex Davis. A longtime friend of Jones, Jack, said he struck an agreement on Jones' behalf with Spencer in 1995, paying her $375 and providing for monthly payments for child support, which ultimately total over $2 million. However, he has in fact not acknowledged that Davis is his biological daughter. Asked why the attorney used the term child support in his statement, Jack said, "I use the term child support because that's what the agreement calls it." Asked if the child support payments indicate that Jones is her father, Jack paused for a few seconds, the lawyer, saying, "I'm not going to answer that one. My statement speaks for itself." Well, she is his daughter. Okay. I think that it's safe to assess.
Yeah. What would that lad who was on the show the other day probably say the exact same thing, which I thought was a great program, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, so this is really an extension of this to show you how convoluted and twisted things can be. So now you're saying, okay, it's all but admitted. And so what more if there's no money involved and Jerry Jones will not acknowledge this? They're going to have to prove it through testing, through biological DNA testing would be the only thing I could think of. But there's a twist to this story. There is a copy of the agreement that sets up two trusts that pay Davis and her mother more than $1.3 million over the past 25 years. However, two additional lump sum payments are due to Davis when she turns 26 and 28 years old. Now,
right, so it's a bit like Bobby Bonilla's contract, only it's got a kicker at the end of it.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's what a lot of trust funds are. Then when a person turns a certain age, that they'll receive the benefits. However, she's 25 and she comes up with a lawsuit a year before the two additional lump sum payments are due. Now, I'm just giving you the facts of the case. Because what we're really talking about is, who do you believe? The lawyer said he got a far different impression of Davis's motives when he met with her and her mother for dinner at a Dallas steakhouse several years ago. In that meeting, Alex, the woman, the young girl, the daughter, read to me a personal letter she had drafted to Jerry Jones in which she expressed her dissatisfaction with what she had received and sought $20 million. She stated that if that amount was paid, she would not bother Mr. Jones again and would keep their relationship confidential. So this is the twisted tale we tell.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, right. Is it possible? I mean, one thing we can say, indeed, is that Jerry Jones is a prick, but we knew that.
Oh,
we knew that long before. I mean,
name me an NFL owner who is not a prick. I mean,
and this is my point, that this is no honor amongst thieves. And I'll get to further this and weave this into a bunch of stories that is really interesting. So either, I think it's to determine that he impregnated her, he paid her off, and he never acknowledged the daughter. And why that was the case, God only knows. It's a lousy, shitty thing to do, and Jerry Jones is a prick. All right?
Yep.
However, if your mother agrees to terms and you are the daughter who was affected by it, and you have two lump sums coming up next year or maybe later this year when she turns 26 and 2 years from now, and if she was trying years ago to up the ante to $20 million, you say to yourself, who is really the victim where? If you look, I mean, there are things that are, things that she received growing up, like the $70,000 Range Rover, but there were other things as well. That one of which was like a $24,000 week's vacation at a luxury place that was actually on television, without mentioning who she was and how she got the money. It was on television.
Wow.
Now, that's a little more than child support. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering what this 1 million was that paid over like how many years? Like 20 years. So that's like 50 grand a year then, if that's the case.
Yeah, but we're getting other kinds of indications, that there was more expenditure. Here's some additional expenses that I'm referring to. $33,000 for her Sweet 16 birthday party, on top of the $70,000 Range Rover. The Sweet 16 birthday party was featured on the reality TV show Big Rich Texas. In addition, Jones paid all of her education expenses, including 4 years at SMU, 1 year at a private high school. Jones also paid $24,000 for her to take a trip abroad after she graduated from college, and $25,000 for Davis and her mother to take a Christmas vacation in Paris, France.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So this is, who do you believe? And again, this will end up going to court. And one party says they're not interested in money and just wants him to acknowledge, which I think by action he has. And he signed an agreement that said he wouldn't. So it's going to come down to the legality that if he signed a document that everybody signed off on, he's not obligated to say that he's the father. Now, why it would be such a big deal this far down the road, God only knows. That's the first story. Now we come to Deshaun Watson's accusers. All right.
Okay.
Two of them now have come out and publicly in real name. Okay. Not just as Jane Doe's.
Yeah, I didn't know this.
A glorious pronouncement that they are coming out with their names because of trying to uphold basic morality. All right. The first person, Lauren Baxley, who's a licensed massage therapist in Houston, sold her story to the Daily Beast.
As you do.
Watson of exposing himself to her. She describes other sordid details of what happened in June of 2020 in a Sports Illustrated story published back in 2021. So now she's going to social media on the Daily Beast. Here's her quote. This is her comment. A failure to charge or convict of a crime does not equate to innocence. Watson, his fans, and the Cleveland Browns pretending it does is not only ignorant, it is evil. I would include a certain NBA player along with the other disappointing excuses of men who in one breath bring awareness to the struggles of marginalized Black women, and in the next praise the elevation of a man who abused dozens of them. That would be LeBron James, who tweeted out, congrats.
Oh, yeah, he did do that to Deshaun Watson. I saw that.
Here's the end quote. I would never expect a public figure to side with Watson's victims. However, I do ask that anyone with a responsibility to uphold basic morality simply shut their mouths and log off Twitter when they are tempted to show Deshaun Watson any support.
Mm-hmm. It is what it is, man.
It is what it is. All right. So this is the first one who came out. Now another one. Here's the quote. I speak out despite my desire to hide forever because it sickens me to think that another woman may have her life defiled by him. Please distance yourself from this man. This is a letter that was written also into the Daily Beast. And this was one of the accusers who wrote a letter in the guise that it was a letter to Deshaun Watson's girlfriend, who is her name is Boss Babe. She's an influencer. Jilly Aeneas is her name.
Okay.
All right. So she's saying, don't let this guy do the same thing to you that he did to me. Right? And I'm coming out for this reason, and that's that. Here are the facts. The facts are that he may have done all of the things that he's accused of. But people getting self-righteous saying, I'm coming out and mentioning my name now. They have to. 14 names have to come out for this civil procedure to continue. You cannot go into a civil action referring to yourself as Jane Doe. You just can't do it. You have to be named. This whole thing, the wheels are in motion now because the criminal system booted it out. So they have to. There will be 14 names that will be exposed in the coming weeks or months, depending on how long this takes. So some are choosing at this point to jump the gun on social media. Who do you believe? Here's another one for you. This is a headline. A picture of Deshaun Watson on foxsports.com. This quarterback, this is a headline, this quarterback was meant to rescue an NFL basket case. It ended with a brutal one-word insult.
What's that all about?
The fact that the Browns said, allegedly, that was not corroborated by anybody specifically, that they wanted an adult as a quarterback.
Oh, okay.
That pissed Baker Mayfield off.
Yeah.
Right. But the headline states the reason the Browns went for Deshaun Watson is because they're an NFL basket case. And that's the, that is, before you read the article, you don't read the article because it's just a goddamn commentary and it doesn't further the ball moving forward. But again, with people yelling and screaming like this, who do you believe? Even funnier was David Njoku. David Njoku tweeted out at 9:15 a.m., good morning all. I have instructed my agent at Malkikawa to seek a trade. I want my fans to know first. And then a few minutes later, he says, April Fools. Right? But
hey, I thought that was funny.
Look, but this is the point of the story.
Okay.
Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network shared it to his 3.3 million followers. Who do you believe? I mean, don't you think a fucking reporter would check that out and would wait for more than 5 minutes to see that it was a joke?
Well, particularly on a day like today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ian Rappaport wants attention like they all want attention. Who do you believe? 8 minutes later, Njoku came clean. So you're telling me that Ian Rappaport wanted what he considered a scoop, God only knows, sound familiar with Mary Kay Cabbagehead, that he couldn't wait 8 minutes for it? Who do you believe? Here's another one. Who do you believe when ESPN is basically publishing stuff that is written by, quote, an ESPN staff writer? Jamison Hensley, ESPN staff writer, writes this. Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson has established himself as one of the top players in football, setting records and creating highlights with his ability to elude defenders. By the way, Jamison Hensley is an ESPN staff writer for the Baltimore Ravens, now that we've gotten that out of the way. Now Jackson is drawing praise as being at the top of his game with how he's handling his contract situation. By not signing an extension like Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen did, Jackson has positioned himself to earn at least $130 million more in guaranteed money and over $7 million more per season. One of the few NFL players not represented by an agent, Jackson is being applauded as loudly as he was when he threw for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in a game. Here's your quote from Jameson Hensley. If I'm Lamar Jackson, I walk into Steve Bisciotti's office and I simply put my feet up on his desk and say, hey, great news for you, Mr. Bisciotti. I don't want $1 more than Deshaun Watson gets. But, oh, by the way, I'm not taking $1 less. So when you're ready to write a check for $230 million, I'm going to sign it. And as great as Lamar Jackson is as a player, by him waiting and representing himself, he's actually going to go down as a Hall of Fame agent, quote unquote.
Oh, that's insane.
Who do you believe? Do you want to know something? You want to know something?
What?
This is crazy. Lamar Jackson had no fucking idea that the whole Deshaun Watson, he was holding out a long time ago. He didn't know the Baker Mayfield thing was going to happen. He didn't know Deshaun Watson was coming to Cleveland. He didn't know shit. The reason Lamar Jackson did what he did is because he already told LeBron James he wants to be a billionaire. And he gets pissed off and he goes on social media, Lamar Jackson, and says, why are people putting words in my mouth? I love the Ravens. You know, I love them. Don't be saying putting words in my mouth that I'm leaving. Of course he's not leaving. As long as they pay him the $230 million guaranteed, he's not leaving. He does not love Baltimore. He does not. That's all just fucking bullshit talk. He's going to go in a strict business sense to where he's going to go. And I don't say there's anything wrong with it. As for being the greatest agent in the history of the NFL by representing himself, if he goes out and gets injured again, except worse this coming year, which he will, because Harbaugh's just got a 3-year extension and he doesn't have the foggiest idea what to do with this guy's talent. Doesn't have the foggiest notion. Then that $230 million is off the table and he gets zippity doo dah, gets nothing. He's taking a gamble.
He is, definitely.
Now, so you want to say that Josh Allen made a mistake by getting his guaranteed money and getting his long-term deal, and that by risking everything and potentially wiping out your career by playing that one last year, actually there's 2 years involved where he's counting on the Ravens and their weakened position. And believe me, the Ravens are in a weakened position. They just rehired a head coach who's not a good coach offensively. Very good defensive coach. Has no idea what to do with offense. They've re-signed him for 3 years. They're going to have to pay, and I think it's like $20,000 or $20 million to Lamar Jackson for next year. And again, if they franchise tag him the second year, even more than that. All right.
Sure.
By that time, he gets to his free agency contract and he's going to demand more than the $230 million. And by Biscotti coming out to the press and complaining that, geez, I don't think Deshaun Watson deserved to make that kind of money and that shouldn't be the kind of offer made. Weak sister. You're in a big-time poker game, Mr. Biscotti. I don't like Jimmy Haslam either. I don't. But I don't like you either, you cocksucker. The goddamn Ravens were the Cleveland Browns, and I haven't forgotten that, you schmuck.
Yeah.
Little minority guy, now you're the majority owner of the team. They're not your team. Nobody's innocent. Who do you believe? Does he love Baltimore, Lamar Jackson? He loves money. And he should, because statistics say he'll be dead by the time he's 60. This is not complicated. Every player, Baker Mayfield, would have put the Browns' feet to the fire if he had a great year with the Browns this coming season. That's business, and that's the business you're in. Sounds like Godfather talk. It's the business that we're in. So, who do you believe in all of this mess? And there's so many converging stories about all of this that I wanted to make one thing clear.
Yep.
I don't believe Deshaun Watson. I don't believe the accusers. I don't believe either party. I don't believe Jerry Jones, and I don't believe Alex Davis. I don't believe either of them. I don't believe ESPN, and I don't believe Jamison Helmsley or Hensley Jameson, whoever the fuck he is. I don't believe him. I don't believe Fox Sports. I don't believe the Daily Beast. I don't believe David Njoku. Don't believe Lamar Jackson. All I believe in is the end result of justice, and however these stories end. Then we will know. We will know what Lamar Jackson's reasons are when he makes a decision on what he's going to do. Then we'll know what it's predicated on, whether he brings his talent to South Beach like LeBron did. Cavaliers fans still sore over taking his talents. Even though he came back and won a championship, people are still very raw about that.
Do you know how long ago that was? That was
a long time ago.
June 2010 when that happened. 12 years ago.
But that is the point. You stole them all right, Joe, because your taxes paid for everything that Art Modell had built.
Correct.
It had nothing. All the taxes were raised in Baltimore so that Art could bring that team there, and your city pulled their pants down for Art Modell and let him anally come in your ass. That's what you did. You're absolutely right. And you know something? The owner of the Colts did the same thing to Baltimore.
Correct.
And took the Colts, and they were gone just like that.
Yeah, Jim Irsay is probably one of the biggest prick owners out of. If he had to rank the 32 owners in the hierarchy, Jim Irsay would be right near the top of prickdom.
Here's the deal. It's like, my point isn't to say that Biscotti or Modell or Irsay, they're all in the same club. One's dead, right? And I hope many more die soon. They're all in the same club. They're all amoral people. They all make money off of flesh. They are all slave drivers. They are sending people to early graves. Do you understand? One owner is not better than the other. One might be smarter. One may cheat better. One may be more adept at getting hand jobs, being on film, getting it, and not getting the film shown. Praise the baby Jesus. I don't want to see Bob Kraft getting his half-limp dick jerked on.
Yeah, well, I mean, why don't Daily Beast pay money to show that then on their website, you know?
and, you know, Tagliabue should have done this, and the NFL does what's good for the NFL. And let me tell you, Joe, and I know that you feel badly about, losses, in the chat room on this program. You miss people. I know. It's a lonely world. But I'll tell you this. None of the people, Tagliabue at the time, Goodell now, the NFL care about anything. And Baltimore wasn't on the map. Baltimore is a little shit city that was a mid-level market. They did a tremendous job, by the way, in Baltimore of reimagining and energizing the downtown area. And Cleveland's done a good job, too. And Cleveland would fall into that same category. Baltimore is, Chesapeake Bay and all that area out there on the coast. The Browns right on Lake Erie. And they developed their downtown area, and professional sports was an integral factor. And in Baltimore, of course, Camden Yards, which beautiful ballpark. Still today, a beautiful ballpark.
Yeah, it's nearly 30 years old now. I think it probably
with a lousy team playing in it. okay, but a beautiful park. And that really brought revenue in. And I guess business people and citizens felt that it was worth paying Art Modell, who cried poverty because of his own stupidity, and took the team from Cleveland. But when they lost their team, pay back some other. And you know something? When Lamar Jackson comes to the table and it's time to do his bidding, one of two things is going to be the case. Either Harbaugh's going to have crippled him and totally lowered the value of the quarterback, and in which case, just like with RG3, they, team's not going to want to have anything to do with anyone who is damaged goods.
Yeah.
So let me make this clear. Lamar Jackson doesn't love the Ravens, and the Ravens don't love Lamar Jackson, okay? Plain and simple. They can mutually be beneficial to one another, but no, there's no love involved in this. There's no loyalty involved in this. That's it. So who do you believe? You got to believe your own moral compass. That's what you got to believe, and not listen to all this fucking noise, because they will sort themselves out. And as far as I'm concerned, the decisions will be made by the Ravens, how they want to move forward. They're not going to offer Lamar Jackson any more contracts because he's not listening. He's made his intentions quite clear that he's going to play out the next 2 years in Baltimore on a franchise tag. He made that eminently clear. Except if he gets injured, in which case he'll come crawling and they'll say, not so fast. You're not so elusive anymore. We're going to catch you on this one, Lamar.
Well, the franchise tag doesn't the franchise actually determine that, not the fucking player? I mean, they could choose to franchise somebody other than Lamar Jackson.
Well, yeah, but they will, because they have nothing behind him. And I mean, they would be, let's be honest about all of this. The reason that Biscotti is so upset with the Browns is we got a really good quarterback.
Correct.
They want the Browns to forever be patsies. They want the Browns to be cellar dwellers.
Oh, everybody in our division wants to go, 2-0 against us. Absolutely. They love that. 2 easy wins in their conference and their division.
That's right. I mean, that's an easy, and they see Cincinnati now and it's like, holy shit, they got a good young quarterback. And I'm sure that Harbaugh will have his linebackers blitzing and late hitting him and try to take him out, because that's what the Ravens do.
That's what they do. That's what they always do.
So, but that's what they're going to try to do to unlevel the playing field, or to level the playing field for themselves, because Cincinnati has nothing behind Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow got hurt and they'd have real massive problems on their hands. Pittsburgh is waiting to find a quarterback who can lead them back to the promised land. And, it's been a long time with Roethlisberger, and now they have to,
they got Haskins, Trubisky, and Rudolph, and what about that Duck character? I mean, is he still around? I mean, they got a lot of shit.
Duck Devlin was released a long time ago, and
I mean,
they've gone through a lot of backups, and it's their turn to rebuild. And God only knows the Browns have had multiple generations of rebuilds that failed. So I would imagine that the Steelers front office will be better than the masquerading front offices of the Browns teams of the past. And but I'll tell you this: the Ravens front office is not as strong without Ozzie Newsome there. And you can see it by the people they're choosing. They're not getting the big impact out of their draft picks that they got previously. And
that's been noticeable, yeah. Absolutely.
There has been a decline. And, if something were to happen to Lamar Jackson, if you could key on their running backs aren't that good. And you would be forcing their backup quarterback to throw the ball more often, and there would be mistakes made.
J.K. Dobbins had an injury that years ago would have put him out for his entire career. So let's see how he comes back. You know, that's something Derek could probably speak about more.
The thing that's interesting is that it's not that I want the Ravens to fail. It's kind of like I'll put up another comment. Of course. I mean, what do we turn into? We turn into the Jacoby Brissett show. I mean, everybody will become very mediocre. The thing about Harbaugh is that he could win with his defense and a mediocre offense.
Oh yeah, he could win all sorts of games, 19-12. I mean,
he won't go anywhere in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
But he will, manage close games pretty well. But the other side of the coin is he will always make games close because he just doesn't have a real wide vision of what offense needs to be. And if you're counting on damn near 1,000 yards rushing from a quarterback to supplement your running backs who will be healthy this coming year, boy, you don't have a whole lot of faith in the forward pass. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen between now and when decision day comes. And when it comes, then I will tell you what I believe. Except I'm just telling everybody that it's obvious what a guy like, Odell Beckham comes to the Browns and forces their hand for a trade. There are some real malcontents. And Lamar Jackson is not a malcontent. He just believes that he's going to be the next big billionaire sports figure. And he may be right if his body holds up. He may be right. I'm not in the prognostication business, but I will talk about it when it happens. Not now, before the stories have a logical conclusion. And I will tell you that $230 million for Deshaun Watson will very quickly be proven a reasonable expenditure or an absolute mistake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd go further than that. It'll either be an absolute bargain or an absolute catastrophe. Yeah, I mean, if the Browns actually win the AFC this year on the back of Deshaun Watson's arm for 8 games, I mean, you'd pay $500 million for that, wouldn't you? Not 230.
And all the contracts were going to be altered anyway. I mean, the notion that it was fucking Cleveland, it's got to really irritate the hell out of the people in the National Football League that this little shit piece of franchise in Cleveland was the one that broke the ice on the big guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
But, they'll all be on their hands and knees sucking. Believe me, they will. Because that's who they are. They will find a way. If some franchises cheated, the Houston Astros cheated, and the New York Yankees, Brian Cashman, hasn't won a goddamn World Series in God knows how long, and he comes out and blames because the Astros cheated that one year. What about all the other years you haven't won it, you schmuck? Nobody is beyond reproach in this context of sports.
Yeah, in baseball, there's no salary cap, so the big cities should be winning. Like, look at the Dodgers and the Angels and all that. That's 2 comparisons you can make. Yeah.
People will spend and spend and spend. Look, Brian Cashman must be the biggest fucking idiot in the world if he couldn't win a World Series with the payroll that they have. It's unbelievable. Every great player seems to walk through the Yankees organization.
Yep.
And somehow they don't win. And, then other teams do. And then in order to even then the Astros cheated. And the Patriots cheated. And, NFL franchises have been giving big paydays, not 230 million guaranteed paydays, but big paydays to people who witnessed murders, had knives in their hands, and had bloody clothes on after it happened.
Well, virtually every team probably has somebody along those lines. I mean, it was very quiet when Tyreek Hill or whatever from Kansas City, he had some past, and he signed his deal virtually the day after Watson did. So, look him up if you want to look up somebody that's not a role model.
And here's another thing. You have a choice. The Baker Mayfield thing was destined for doom. We're going to bring Double P in. Hi, Peter. How you doing?
Doing good. I had a few some questions to go along with the theme a little bit.
Yeah, go on.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say on the whole, do you believe John Johnson talking about Odell's gonna come back? I wanted to ask last show, but we ran out of time.
Yeah, I mean, John Johnson, I've told everybody I would get rid of him. He's poison in the locker room. He was supposed to have a presence of being a professional, and bringing this shit up, it's like saying, well, you see, it was Baker Mayfield all along, but no, it was more than that, because Odell Beckham was a pain in the ass long before he ever came to Cleveland. So
yeah, I'm seeing Browns fans like, oh, bring Odell back and bring Odell back. I'm no, thank you.
I don't believe Browns fans either. I don't believe what I read on Twitter either. Unlike our good buddy Ian Rappaport, I don't believe any of it. I research things and I find out what I think based upon reading, researching, and thinking about things, and taking an open-minded approach and saying, all these things are possibilities. What would I do in a situation like that? But the whole thing with Baker Mayfield and the Browns was falling apart.
Yeah.
It was two sides of unyielding people. Baker Mayfield is an unyielding person, and Jimmy Haslam is an unyielding person. And you ended up with the standoff. And you know who's going to win, the guy who's got the bigger dick for the pissing contest, and that's Haslam, because Haslam has something besides a hell of a lot more money than Baker. He's got the media in his hip pocket in Cleveland. So all the publicity will go against Baker Mayfield. And that's what happened. They vilified him.
And so then the other one was about so I think I know your answer, but the whole thing about, the Browns are maybe looking at bringing Baker in to play maybe the games that Watson might be suspended for.
Oh, it's a joke. I mean, Baker Mayfield will never put on a Browns uniform again. Baker Mayfield is as unyielding as anybody. And Baker Mayfield, here's how this will end. I will tell you how it's going to end. I just don't know the wheres, the what fors. The Cleveland Browns have pissed the league off. And when I say the league, I don't mean Roger Goodell. I mean the owners of the other 31 teams. By making this deal with Deshaun Watson and literally pulling their pants down the way they did, the other owners who are greedy bastards who are already making so much money, and they are constantly in a battle to try to make more and to change the rules of the game so that they can stretch more games out of football players so they'll die sooner in their later years. Everything money. Everything that's going to cost you this much to stream NFL games, to put them on satellite. It's all a big business. So this is, the things that you're talking about are not going to happen. Baker Mayfield is done and finished in Cleveland, and what will happen to him is there will be no trade partners ever, because the other 31 owners are like this and saying, go ahead, Jimmy, eat the 18.8, you prick. That's what because the other NFL owners don't have to do a goddamn thing because they're just as wealthy, maybe even wealthier, of course, than Jimmy Haslam. And they would pull their pants down in many different ways, including cheating, including spying on teams, doing whatever was necessary, shooting players up with painkillers and putting them out on the field, whatever the situation is, that, and then trying to blame Baker Mayfield for playing with all the injuries he had when the team okayed it. These teams will do anything. So they're going to stand and sit on their thumbs and do nothing until the Browns have to eat the 18.8 million. And then a bunch of teams are going to try to jump on Baker. Baker will be playing in the NFL next year. Now, but he's going to be, unfortunately, in a situation where whoever gives him the best opportunity, and for Baker, the best opportunity is, of course, to play with a team like, he wanted to play with the Colts because they have a better roster. But if he can't do that, he'll play for a team like the Steelers, who play the Browns twice, so we can stick it in their ass, because that's who Baker is, who he'll always be. And it's one of the reasons why he's really a highly unlikable person to some people.
Yeah.
I mean, so he'll go where he goes. And the problem is he only has 1 year to prove himself wherever the hell he goes.
Yeah.
And if he starts getting passes batted down, if he starts running away and getting sacked, and he's unable to read his progressions, and he's done. He becomes Sam Darnold, a short Sam Darnold. And then he becomes a backup quarterback and just tries to stay in the damn league.
Yeah, I think he's going to end up being a backup. He'll probably end up going to somewhere like Jacksonville and sit behind Trevor Lawrence, or go down to San Diego or something like that. I think that's his future, because he's going to get killed, by J.J. Watt again, or T.J. Watt, or B.J. Watt, or A.J. Watt, or whatever.
Johnny Watt.
Watt. Yeah, he's just going to get he's just going to get wrecked. He's like one tippy tap injury away from having a career-ending, day.
But his career has been damaged by the circumstances, and it's all or nothing, and he has no say in where he goes. And so what happens if it's like the other NFL teams go, we don't want this guy because he's kind of a loudmouth, and the Panthers say, we'll take him.
Yeah.
And then the next thing Baker knows, he's fighting with Darnold for a starting job.
Wow.
I mean, that's the meteoric drop. There's a meteoric rise and a meteoric fall. And that's what's happened to him, and it's unfortunate. But he's got 1 year to prove himself.
Yeah.
I really think he's probably going to maybe go to Tampa Bay, so he can just sit behind Tom Brady. They have good receivers, a good O-line, and he can probably develop a little bit and try to show out that 1 year there, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Well, what's incredible? It's Bruce Arians.
Oh, yeah.
Saying he's happy to, quote, reward Todd Bowles with the head coaching job.
Oh.
Now, look, he had no interest in leaving. And then when Brady said his so longs, he was going to stay. When Brady said he was coming back, it was like, okay, I'm done. You can have him, Todd. Because Todd's going to work with the defense, and Brady will be the offensive coordinator, right? But that's the double speak. He's rewarding Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles could be a head coach. He doesn't need to be rewarded by somebody who decides to step down, because there is probably a personal issue between he and Brady. Because Arians is notorious for being very outspoken and very loud. He was here in Cleveland. He's, a piece of work.
Oh, wow.
And, Mark Ross is saying this, and I say, no, he's got a much stronger arm than Ginger Boy.
And he's smarter, too. He's smarter than Dalton. Dalton's, dumber than, Jesus.
Kind of reminds me more of a Ryan Fitzpatrick guy, a guy who can come out and throw for 300 yards and get you all psyched up and get you all hungry for the next game, and then he throws 3 picks the next game. That's if somebody said to me, what would Baker Mayfield wind up being? I'd say he'd end up being an alternate spark plug and depressant for teams, because he's puts together great games, and then he puts together games where his mechanics are all screwed up and he's not accurate, but he can pierce defenses and throw for over 300 yards. And Fitzpatrick could throw for over 400 yards.
Correct.
And it kept him in the league a long time.
When Baker was injury-free, Baker's damn good quarterback, but he's never going to be injury-free now, unfortunately. I mean, it's a bit like Greedy Williams is never going to be injury-free. There's so many guys that are never going to be injury-free, and they keep playing 17 games a year, and then an extra round of the playoffs. When you have to play, 4 rounds to get to the freaking Super Bowl,
Thank Moo.
They're going to all die.
Yeah, it's and before I get off the air, I feel compelled to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers in the end of what has been a fantastic season with a dramatic death drop and death plunge at the end of the season. And
like the death spiral, the ice skaters, and the girl let go, it's the guy's hand and she falls on the ice flat. That's what the death spiral. With Mobley hurt, they ain't gonna do dick.
Well, and it's not just Mobley. I mean, Jared Allen allowed Mobley to be a power 4, and he's not physically ready to be a 5. So when Jared Allen went down, it put stresses on and wore Mobley down.
Correct.
He ends up getting hurt, and now the team is bereft of direction. I'm afraid that they extended JB Bickerstaff too soon, because they're not running plays. They're not running a discernible offense, and they're just kind of running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and they're not running set plays. And it's kind of a shame.
Yeah.
And, for the Cavaliers fans, it was a great ride this year, but we're not going to win. If we're lucky, we'll win one more game this year. That's the Orlando game in Orlando. I don't see this team winning more than that. And I think they're going to drop to the number 10, and they're just going to be one and done. They're going to be finished because they're not going to have a home game. And they're just, we already played the team that was 10, the Atlanta Hawks, and they just buried us. We're just not built deep enough, and the players that we have are not battle tested. So it is what it is. It was exciting while it lasted, but a lot of people became like Pinocchio, like Jetty Osmond became Pinocchio. He really started believing he was actually a basketball player, and he started doing really well. And Kevin Love shook off his depression, and he basically, became the Kevin Love 3-point bomb machine, and he was all with it. Everybody was together and rowing together, and Okoro was playing beastly defense. None of that's there now. They're not sharing the ball. They're not playing hard defense. Teams are scoring at will at the rim. They're scoring wide open threes that are not even being contested. So it's unfortunate. I wished for a better end for the Cavaliers, but I would like to have seen a full 7-game series so that they could learn just how far away they are. We're seeing it now.
Well, it's hard to be critical of anybody on that team. I think they've done the best they could. They've gotten as much out of them as they possibly can,
And Lou, I just wanted to give you credit because Karis LeVert, he's a guy I was a little excited about, and now I'm not so excited about him. And you were
is what he is.
Yeah, you were right about him from the start, and now it's like I don't know what we're gonna do with him with his contract also, and his skill set's kind of redundant on the team. So I just don't know what we're gonna do with him.
Well, all the people that I talk to who know stuff are saying that they're not going to bring Colin Sexton back, but that Karis LeVert will be back And that's why I believe that the Cavaliers will be going backwards, because Karis LeVert is a guy who he can get his shot off, but it's not a really good shot, and he doesn't really hit the shot a high enough percentage of the time, and he's not a good ball handler. All the things that I already told you. I mean, when I opine about something, it's based on watching a lot of footage on a player, and it's like, and I saw Karis LeVert play in with the Nets, and he's lost physicality since a series of injuries that he's had. So he doesn't have the first step burst. You notice when he gets to the rack, he doesn't finish with the thunderous dunk. He doesn't get up. He's double clutching. He's double pumping. He just doesn't have the athleticism to be the kind of player that the Cavaliers hope that he would be, which is a guy who's going to come in and give him energy. He could play some passing lane defense, but he could score the basketball. When we took some of our better scorers out, that he could, but he can't, because he can't consistently get around the person who's guarding him. And when they bring, and then he pounds the ball, and he's easily stripped of the ball because he's not a primary ball handler. So,
It's like, what are we gonna do with Okoro now too? That we have LeVert, who's extended, has the contract already.
These are all questions for the front office to figure out, and it's going to be a real challenge, especially when you see the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of nature of the season taking this kind of a fast turn. It's more than injuries. The team looks emotionally depleted. They've given up. And that's not anything we saw at all during the vast majority of the season. But they reached a point, and it doesn't help when Kevin Love, who is a veteran spokesperson, says, "We're gutted. We're gutted." Well, that's the depression talking. That doesn't help anybody.
Oh, certainly not. But the less said about all that, the better. Really.
Yeah.
It doesn't even help us talking about it. So,
no, and it's obvious the team is emotionally overwrought over what's happening.
I think Double P need headset on or something.
Yeah, we're getting a little feedback. The final thing about who do you believe, and this is I've done this for so long that I do talk about pop culture, and everybody saw what happened at the Academy Awards. And again, it's easy to jump to conclusions about things. And I know that Jada Pinkett Smith had alopecia, and that's why her head was shaved. And I knew that. And people who follow them know that. Chris Rock claims he did not know that when he made the G.I. Jane joke. When he made the joke, Will Smith laughed. But then when he saw how his wife reacted, he decided, I better put the big boy pants on, and he went up and he slapped Chris Rock. So that's the story that gets said. He was standing up for his woman. The problem is that video shot from cell phones from tables behind where they were sitting. Clearly, after the incident, the first thing that Chris Rock says is, well, Will Smith just slapped the shit out of me. And there is Jada Pinkett Smith laughing at that comment.
Wow.
So who do you believe? And I will tell you what I believe. People who are privileged and living Hollywood existences, don't pretend that you're a spokesperson for women who have alopecia, because Jada, you're pretty, you're beautiful, you're a movie star, you're a multimillionaire on your own, without Will. You would have what you want in life. The average woman who has alopecia may be middle-aged and dumpy and have absolutely no access to press writing them up as goddesses. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. That's the first thing. Don't play like you're offended or in some way being stripped of your dignity when there are people whose dignity was stripped from them a long time ago. And it's one thing to come out and show your bald head in fashion magazines and say, I'm doing this on behalf of all women with alopecia. But it's okay for me to roll my eyes and get my husband, who's obviously got an anger management problem, to go up on stage and slap somebody and come back and scream vulgarities at Chris Rock from a seated position when he gets back. And then you turn around and laugh at Chris Rock's comment that he got the shit slapped out of him. So that's what that is. Who do I believe? You're going to take away his Oscar. You're going to take away whatever the hell there is. I don't care. These people have more than they need anyway. There's been more said about it and more talked about it than you can imagine. Chris Rock's career will be turned into a meme of him getting slapped every day of his life for the rest of his life. He's the new crying Jordan.
Or he's a new Batman Robin with the Batman slap. He's the new Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what I choose to believe is wait. And then different truths come forward. And I'd say that Jada Pinkett Smith is not a good person. Will Smith is not a good person. And if you're doing the Academy Awards show and you got a script, maybe you should kind of stick to the script and not ad lib when you don't know that what you're saying could be hurtful. I actually come out more sympathetic toward Chris Rock because I understand he was just trying to be funny. All I know is that Jada Pinkett Smith provoked her husband into anger because he has an anger management problem and he couldn't control himself from the time he got up from his seat to the time that he walked up to the stage to the time that he bitch slapped him to the time that he walked all the way back to his seat again and then starts hurling epithets at the guy. Will Smith isn't who we thought he was because he has public relations agents who draw a picture of him, and that's the same thing. The Cleveland Browns. What was the headline on Fox Sport News? They're an NFL basket case.
Basket case, which is isn't politically correct to say, isn't it? Saying somebody's a basket case.
Not at all. But I mean, in the end, it's just people will believe what they will believe. People will believe that Will Smith doesn't have an anger management problem. He's a sick motherfucker. I don't care what anybody tries to do to defend that. And these women who are screaming about the Browns and scream about Will Smith, you can't go around slapping people.
Well, Will Smith, I mean, if that had been somebody other than a celebrity like Will Smith going up on stage, you would have thought that some security would stop them from getting within 5 yards of Chris Rock. So why was Will Smith allowed to even get up on the stage and confront him like that?
I don't know.
But no one's. I've not heard an answer about that.
Somebody had dropped. I mean, the fact that there was an argument amongst the producers of the telecast. Some people wanted him thrown out after he did it, and others refused. And so he stayed to get his Oscar because they knew he was going to get the Oscar, because that whole thing is all kind of rigged to begin with.
Correct. And if we want to talk about more evil NFL owners, we can talk about the Buffalo Bills guy clowning $850 million out of the taxpayers of New York to build a stadium in Buffalo. And then the governor of New York goes on and says, well, we got to make $800 million worth of cuts.
Yeah. I mean, it goes on, and who you choose to believe, and that's your business in the end. But I'm just saying, I wait for things. I wait for things to come out, and I don't jump to the first thought and run to my Twitter.
Well, the thing is, I mean, this whole idea of Twitter and social media and all that is that you have to pick a side. Well, maybe you don't want to play the game. Maybe you just want to sit on the sideline and just not even give a shit about what's going on. I mean,
you're really stupid if you ran a video about the whole situation with Deshaun Watson and that second criminal grand jury,
Yep.
there were people who jumped on there and said, "Aha, this is it. They're gonna nail him." And if they'd have just waited a day, they'd realize that that wasn't true. But all of these hot takes, it's one of the reasons why I stopped doing a show 5 days a week. And I only do a beginning of the week and an end of the week program, because things can settle in between and stories change, and they can change radically in a matter of hours or days. So
if you want to go on who do you believe and who you don't believe, look at all the conflicting information from Ukraine and Russia about their war that they're having. So you have no idea what to believe on any of that either. So it's just a nightmare. So why pick sides? Why force other people to pick sides?
I don't know.
I
just know what I see with my eyes. I report what I see in my eyes with the Cavaliers. And I reported what I saw about Karis LeVert based on my research. I could have been wrong. Maybe he would have fit perfectly into the Cavs system. There's a whole series of things. I could only give you my opinions, and I can only base my opinions upon what my eyes see, but not what my ears hear from the outside.
Yeah,
and I would suggest that more of you do that and stop parroting these hot takes, because it doesn't do anybody any good. I got to get the hell out of here. I appreciate Double P. Thank you for being on the program. And Bronk, thank you. And thanks for everybody for this has been an interesting season, and it's been a sports period of time where, the support of subscribers to this channel has grown, and I appreciate it. And I can guarantee you that you'll never have to pay for this, that there will never be asking for money or anything of that sort. This program is here because of my love for doing it, my love of broadcasting.
There's not going to be adverts every 10 minutes either. So
no. And the other thing is
Patreon.
I ain't going to be much of the way of Guardians talk either. So
correct.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, as we always are, for the next installment of Moohead Radio. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Bye.